In the coastal forests of Kenya, wood doesn't just build houses, it houses souls. To an art collector, they were primitive art, an investment. To the Mijikenda people, they are a heartbeat. Within these protected forests, sacred sites closed to the outside world, lives a connection to the dead. And the Vigango are the keys to that connection. But right now, hundreds of these keys are locked in museum basements. One side sees a spiritual disaster. The other sees a fine art commodity. This is the story of a heist that spans decades, continents, and dimensions. Let's deconstruct the mystery. The Mijikenda, 9 tribes, 7 of whom share one belief: the ancestors never truly leave. When a member of the Gohu society dies, a spiritual leader, a lawmaker, a keeper of the community's moral order, something must be done. Not every ancestor gets this honor. Only the Gohu, the spiritual elite. The spirit, the coma, needs a home. Without one, it cannot rest, it cannot protect, it can only wait. To fix this, they call the carver. But this isn't just carpentry, it's a ritual. It has to be hardwood, mvule, dense, rot-resistant, built to outlast the body it represents. It's a stylized human form, a seat for the soul, a telephone line between the living and the dead. Look at these patterns. Abstract, geometric, but deliberate. They map a human body, not a portrait, a presence. It is a spiritual blueprint of a person who no longer has a body. Once the carving is done, the installation begins. This is where the wood becomes a person. They pour palm wine at its base. They share millet. They speak to it by name. They treat it as a living counselor, not an idol. You don't pray to it, you talk with it. As a grandfather, a protector, a witness. As long as that wood stays in the ground, the village is in balance. The rain falls, the crops grow. But in the 1980s, Western art dealers noticed them. Dealers realized that these primitive statues look like modern abstract art, a commodity for the elite. Suddenly, a sacred ancestor had a price tag, and it was a high one. Thieves began entering villages at night. They didn't care about the spirits, they cared about the price tag. They were uprooted, handed to runners, sold through Mombasa souvenir shops, and legally exported to the West. By the morning, the ancestor was gone. Only a hole in the dirt remained. The Koma were restless, unhoused, and the community paid the price. This wasn't just theft. For the Mijikenda, this was a kidnapping of the soul. For decades, these ancestors would sit in the dark, labeled as inventory. But the story didn't end in the galleries. The Koma were about to find their way home. In part 2, we track the forensic trail of the stolen Vigango, from the villages to the gallery shelves, and the fight to bring them back. Coming up, how an ancestor becomes an artifact. Once a Kigongo was pulled from the Kenyan soil, the transformation began. To the law, it wasn't a soul, it was a wooden object, a souvenir. Middlemen, known as runners, were the boots on the ground. Usually local, unemployed youth, they were the ones who knew which homesteads to target. Some were stolen outright under the cover of darkness. Others were purchased, exploiting families in deep poverty or pressured by middlemen. The runners were paid a pittance, sometimes as little as $7. But the value of the ancestor was about to skyrocket. Because Kenya hadn't yet gazetted these as protected heritage, the export was perfectly legal. They crossed oceans by the hundreds, tucked into shipping containers. This is how 38 statues ended up in Illinois, and 99 at Hampton. It stayed this way until 1985. When an American researcher named Monica Udvardi arrived in Kenya for her doctoral fieldwork. She photographed Vigango at family homesteads, including those belonging to a Giriama elder named Kalume Mwakiru. Weeks later, she returned with the prints to show the family. But she was too late. The response was haunting. It's gone. It was stolen. This wasn't just a survey, it was a mass kidnapping. But it would take 14 years for the first breakthrough. In 1999, Udvardi found a match. A statue photographed at Kalame's home in 1985 was sitting in a museum basement in Illinois. The paper trail was complete. The evidence was undeniable. But identifying the statues was the easy part. Getting them back would take 7 more years of pressure, public shaming, and diplomatic warfare. The reactions were split. The Illinois State Museum agreed to return the statue, but Hampton University refused. Hampton argued they had good title. They had bought it legally under the rules of the 1980s. While the institutions debated title, the Mijikenda family remained in mourning. For them, their ancestors' spirits were still prisoners. The distance between a basement in the Midwest and a village in Kenya isn't just miles. It's a gap in the soul. 1985, the trail goes cold. The ancestors are now cargo. In America, the transformation is complete. They aren't spirits anymore. They are primitive art. But the real value wasn't just in the art. It was in the tax code. The verdict. The trade was built on a massive financial leap. One statue ended up with actor Powers Booth. He donated it, along with 7 others, to Illinois State University. The collector finds a home for the piece. The museum gains a collection. The family loses. For 14 years, they sat in the dark. Item numbers instead of names. 1999. Anthropologist Monica Udvardi is 8,100 miles from Kenya. She is watching a colleague present research on the Illinois statues. She stops. She recognizes the carvings. It's a forensic match. Her 1985 field photo proves it. This Vigango was stolen from the Mijikenda homestead. The search expands. The numbers are staggering. A mass internment of Kenyan spirits across American institutions. 2003. The evidence is published. By 2005, Kenya formally demands their return. Illinois looks at the evidence. They see the 1985 photos. They agree to repatriate immediately. But Hampton University digs in. They claim the purchase was legal. They own the title. They hide behind the law of the 80s. The stalemate hits the front pages. Fearing federal funding cuts, the leadership reluctantly reverses. Suddenly, good title doesn't matter as much as good PR. The paper trail finally loops back to the start. From a $7 bribe to a diplomatic homecoming. But the ancestors had been gone for 22 years. The paper trail was fixed. The land was not. Next, we analyzed the curse using forensic weather data. The statues were back, but the curse remained. Decades of misfortune, illness, poverty, community collapse. We checked the climate records. The data is clear. The peaks of suffering match the worst droughts in decades. Could it be geological? Some point to the Rift Valley. There, shifting plates vent toxic methane. But the Mijikenda homestead is coastal, a different world. The science here points elsewhere. Soil salinity, deforestation. The curse wasn't a gas leak. It was a weather trap. This trap created a local hierarchy of unemployed youth. Desperation turned the sacred into a commodity. While Warhol and Hackman collected art, the family lost their center. The verdict. It was a self-fulfilling feedback loop. Drought leads to poverty. Poverty leads to the theft. The theft of the ancestors breaks the community's spirit. 22 years of trauma cannot be erased by a shipping crate. They had the money. The family had the rain, until they didn't. But the science only tells half the story. Next, we reach the final judgment on the restless wood. June 2007. The homecoming. Kache Mwakiru, the widow, the one who watched 27 cows die. She was 65 when they were taken. She is now 87. They are returned to the homestead, placed in a steel cage, secure, protected, so they can never be cargo again. But can the ritual ever truly be complete? The elders aren't certain. Once the spirit is severed from the land, some say the link is lost forever. Who is the culprit? The thief in the night, or the market that turned an ancestor into a tax write-off? For one family, the fight worked. The ancestors are home. But the cost was a generation, and hundreds more remain in the dark. The curse didn't end with the return. It ended with the reckoning.